Michael Burry, the man who predicted the 2008 financial collapse, publicly accused the biggest tech companies in the world of fraud. He called it, quote, one of the more common frauds of the modern era. The CEO whose company he named called the allegation, quote, batshit. Here's what Burry actually found. According to the IDC, $366 billion worth of server equipment and GPUs will be purchased worldwide in 2026. That equipment is primarily used to build and equip data centers that handle everything from basic cloud computing and web traffic to the terawatt-munching requirements of AI models. Burry found an accounting treatment he believed masked $176 billion in losses between 2026 and 2029. Now, it's important to note, companies do depreciate assets based on a published schedule by the IRS. For GPUs and server equipment, that schedule is 5 years, meaning a company would mark their hardware as economically worthless after 5 years. Burry publicly claimed that these hyperscalers were extending the useful life of GPU server hardware to 5 to 6 years, despite a real-world product cycle of 2 to 3 years. So why does Burry consider this fraud? The longer a company can claim the equipment has useful life, the lower the company's annual depreciation expense, which then translates into higher reported earnings. Meta, Google, Oracle, Microsoft, and Amazon were all upgrading equipment every 2 to 3 years as faster and better performing hardware was made available from companies like Nvidia, while simultaneously treating now dark or outmoded hardware as holding some value, lowering their expense and boosting their earnings per share. The Man Group's research revealed the effective economic life of GPUs are approximately 1 year. They went on to put this in perspective. A data center filled with H100s from Nvidia in 2024 faces severe competitive disadvantages against Nvidia's subsequent GPU product Blackwell in 2025 and, quote, potential obsolescence from the next upgraded chip architecture. Burry went on to take large short positions in Palantir and Nvidia specifically for this reason. Staying true to form, the CEO of Palantir, Alex Karp, called Burry's allegation and subsequent short, quote, super weird and, quote, batshit. Karp did not address the specific accounting treatment in question. Is this deflection as admission, Alex? CNBC covered this story thoroughly but could not independently verify whether the practices were being implemented. None of the companies involved responded in any meaningful way to their requests for information. You know, one of the best ways to support small YouTube channels like mine is to subscribe. If you like the content and you'd like to see more of it, consider subscribing. Back to the episode. These accounting tricks we just walked through don't exist in isolation. They're part of a broader permission structure where the same instinct to manipulate numbers also shapes how founders talk to investors, to regulators, and to the public. And no one has taken that playbook further than the man who now runs the most valuable AI company in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, I present OpenAI and Sam Altman. Like Musk, Altman has a troubled relationship with the truth. Here's a partial list of the wreckage created from Altman's seemingly allergic reaction to facts and fidelity. OpenAI was founded as an open-source nonprofit with the stated mission to, quote, safely benefit humanity, unconstrained by a need to generate financial return, end quote. In October of 2025, OpenAI refiled as a for-profit, public benefit corporation. Ronan Farrow co-authored a New Yorker investigation published April 6th of 2026, where he discovered the OpenAI board compiled a roughly 70-page document evidencing Altman's, quote, consistent pattern of lying. Altman was fired by his board in November of 2023. He was reinstated within days under investor pressure, and the board that fired him was replaced. Altman allegedly told U.S. intelligence officials that China had launched a major AGI development project and asked for government funding to launch a counteroffensive, then failed to provide evidence of that Chinese project when asked. Senior Microsoft executives described Altman as someone who, quote, misrepresented, distorted, renegotiated, and reneged on agreements. One senior Microsoft executive said, quote, I think there's a small but real chance he's eventually remembered as a Bernie Madoff or Sam Bankman-Fried level scammer. Despite this pattern of widespread malfeasance, OpenAI continued to raise increasingly large sums of investment capital. In March of this year, OpenAI raised $122 billion, carrying a valuation of $852 billion. This is now the template in big tech. Say one thing, do the opposite. Make outlandish claims that can't possibly become reality, and watch your valuation, stock price, or earnings explode, all without any accountability or anyone seeming to even question them. Every media outlet, talking head, and tech bro-friendly podcast host that covers these stories will use words like inaccurate, equivocation, maybe even misleading if they're feeling spicy. Some will create fanciful word ballet like critics argue, or there is disagreement, or analysts warn, to avoid calling this what it is. Apparently, nobody will use the word that actually applies here, because using it creates legal exposure and kills access. But I'll take a crack at it. When you tell investors a truck works when it doesn't, that's a lie. When you tell the public full self-driving is 2 years away for 19 straight years, that's not optimism. That's a lie. When you book your own investment back to yourself as revenue and present it as customer demand, that is a lie. The reason those three sentences sound jarring is because we've been trained to accept a lower standard from people with enough money and enough lawyers to suppress those statements. This conflict is structural. The media needs access to these big tech CEOs to generate advertiser demand, generate clicks, engagement, and to win a small slice of their attention-based economy. The corporate lawyers have jammed risk mitigation down the throats of every producer, showrunner, and board of directors, making them believe they are one liable lawsuit away from being put out of business. And then there's another, more hidden and loathsome reason why media outlets won't call this out. Many of them have signed content licensing deals with OpenAI and others. The same companies they should be holding to account are the ones paying them for access to content so LLMs like ChatGPT can reuse that content. The conflict of interest and the unraveling of journalistic integrity doesn't stop there. Financial media outlets platform these founders and CEOs with kabuki theater levels of production and positioning, creating a proverbial padded room of friendly interviewers who allow them to use carefully crafted language scripted by $2,000 an hour lawyers, all in an attempt to lie while creating a thin veil of legal cover. There is a specific vocabulary tech executives use that sound like claims, but legally isn't. Phrases like on track to, working toward, we believe, expected to, our goal is. Elon Musk never says the robotaxi will launch on this date. He says, I'm highly confident. The gap between the impression created and the legal exposure is not accidental. Every one of these executives has lawyers who know exactly what the securities laws say about forward-looking statements. The language is painstakingly calibrated, rehearsed, and regurgitated. I'm highly confident is not a promise. We expect to is not a commitment. But apparently, 19 years of Musk using those catchphrases while producing exactly jack squat is a successful, lucrative, and mostly legal business strategy. An entire system of enablers, platformers, sycophants, and intimidated journalists have committed to this permission structure, raising no complaints, no critiques, enforcing zero accountability. Why? Because they benefit from these same conditions. When these CEOs feel comfortable making these claims, they make increasingly bold and outlandish statements. That becomes the clickbait, the attention, and the engagement they are chasing so desperately they will routinely provide free PR to the people who apply legally washed language to inflate, exaggerate, mislead, and yes, lie. And this isn't just hand-wringing over the declining moral character of these tech CEOs that have been idolized by the media, investment analysts, and fanboys. This behavior literally moves markets. Every time Musk says full self-driving is coming, the stock price goes up. Every time Altman says they've reached some new plateau in model performance, his valuation goes up by tens of billions. When Microsoft applies exotic accounting treatments it's technically not eligible for, and causes the aggregated market cap to explode by $7 billion in 1 week, the markets move for everyone who owns ETFs, participates in 401ks or IRAs, or even the day trader enthusiast playing with a $2,000 hobby account. At some point, markets stopped looking at the data and started listening to increasingly hyperbolic narratives. The market and the public eventually finds out full self-driving is nowhere near ready, that ChatGPT 5 is not a step change in performance from GPT 4, that Microsoft Azure sales look tepid once you strip out OpenAI's credits. The stock's fall or investors' private equity looks increasingly risky. The average person's 401k or IRAs or ETFs take a hit. They continue to lose confidence in a market that feels increasingly rigged and start to question if the rules only apply to them. Maybe they're right to feel like this. Maybe they're right that this is all just rigged, that only common investors have to play by the rules. The regulators certainly can't be bothered to complete investigations or enforce their own rules. We watch blatant insider trading of oil futures and no one even gets a summons. It's easy to feel helpless. That's where I want to challenge anyone watching this. Read past the headlines. Stop repeating or reposting this nonsense. Stop consuming media whose editorial staff refuses to challenge or question these CEOs. The regulators aren't coming to save us. The investment banks aren't either. If you want to hold them to account, start with your own behavior. That's it for this episode. As always, like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.